and they are expected to come in, sit down, maybe even in alphabetical order, and they just sit there and be quiet waiting. So when I walked in 5 minutes after you started, there was zero energy in that class. How did you change that? Because I heard you were running and playing games and things.
Yeah, Devin and I looked at each other and like, we've got to get some energy into this room. I said, we've got to come up with some game or something that where they can practice what they're learning. And so we were talking about business, and we decided that we're going to get them to learn what a system is by having to create a system. And so we looked at ourselves because we didn't bring supplies to do this. We didn't expect to do it. We didn't even know we were going to do it. We created the game and then looked at what supplies we had around us. And all we really had were little plastic cups in the back of the room for people to get drinks of water. And so we decided that's going to be what we're going to use, and we'll do a cup stacking game. And so everything was timed, and they started off doing it individually, just like a sole business owner might start a business where they have to do everything. And they had to go to one side of the room. They could only pick up one cup at a time, and then they had to run to the other side and stack the cups, and the highest stack won. And so they were doing this, and they got done. And I asked them, I said, how do you feel? They said, we're exhausted. And so, well, now you know how a sole business owner feels. It's because you need a team of people. So that was the first lesson we learned.
All right. So wait, the first lesson is you got them up and moving so they could experience it. Did you tell them you're going to run this cup from here to there? Or did you make them move the cup?
We told them what the rules of the game were going to be, and then they figured out how they were going to move the cups and what they were going to do. But
So
doing it
you didn't
individually,
even tell
most were
them
just
how.
running.
You didn't even tell them how to do it. So they couldn't memorize. They had to be creative and take action. Right after this break, we're going to talk. This is a great game. I want to hear more about this. We'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome back to the Real Power Family Radio Show. Today we have my dad, Eric, and my mom, Lila, as well as myself, Deven Wohlwend, and we are talking about education and how to get a real education. We were just talking about a game that my mom and I created at the Youth Academy at the National Real Estate Summit. And we had just talked about how the first part of the game was it got people up and moving, and it kind of taught people how being a sole business owner, you're doing everything yourself, and that's a lot of work. And then what we did after that is we had people get into groups of 3 people. And Mom, what happened there?
So now they have to learn to work together and create a system to move the cups. They could still only move one cup at a time, but now that they started getting really creative as far as, how they're getting the cups across, they're starting to, hand them to each other so they don't have to run, and they're figuring out different ways to stack the cups. And so that was even more creative. And I loved that because it got them working together and talking together, and they started laughing and having a good time with it. And
Let
then
me sum this up. You not only didn't make them sit down and be quiet, you encouraged them to get up and make noise and move around. They were not just memorizing and learning what they saw on an overhead or whatever they use nowadays. They were talking to each other. You didn't say you're cheating if you work with your friend. You said find 2 friends and you have to work in groups of 3. So you're teaching the real business principles by actually doing what we have to do in business to survive. This is the way we train our children. Everybody that says, but how'd you get them to learn that? I don't know. It's different in every circumstance. Just talking to a very highly educated, has a great job. Jennifer was on our veterans program. Talked to her for a while this morning. And she is everything you would want to grow up to be. She's got the great family. Her and her husband are well educated, have great jobs. She showed up at this real estate investor summit and just couldn't believe it's like an entirely different world out there that she never saw or experienced. And one of her phrases was, "Can you really do that?" Yes. You just have to get out of your little box. And they start training you from kindergarten, maybe even preschool. Whatever happened to the time where we got to finger paint and be creative and make things? Where did we go from that to sit down and memorize this formula for calculus that you're never going to use, but you need to know it anyways?